Welcome back, beautiful people. Today I'm actually going on BBC Radio Scotland on the Kaye Adams Show. I'm going on to talk about male eating disorders in the light of Christopher Eccleston, who was a Doctor Who actor who's recently come out and said that he's been struggling with this all his life. So we're hoping to go on and raise some awareness of males eating disorders and kind of blast the stigma of how it's not only a white girl privileged female illness. So this is what we've got to do. We've got to keep pushing forward as it doing this, guys, because the more celebrities that come out and actually keep speaking about it, the more males will actually feel comfortable to come out and actually get help, because the earlier you can obviously get early intervention, the more likely you are to have a full-time and full lifelong recovery. So I hope that you find something in this, guys. If you are a male and you're suffering, or you're anybody that's suffering with an eating disorder, please let me know in the comments below. I would love to help you. You can obviously email me at tkelly906@googlemail.com. I'm actually going to be doing an eating disorder recovery coach course very, very soon, which I'm actually in the process of halfway through, so I should be obviously qualified very, very soon to help you out in some way or another, guys. I hope you take something out of this. Please subscribe to the channel. It's the only way I can get help to obviously reach more people is through you guys. Be sharing the videos and obviously bump it up the algorithm to obviously let people know that I'm actually here and that we can actually help one another and build a bit of a community. Much love as always, guys, and thanks for your love and support. It means the world, and I share that all to you as well. Much love and speak soon.
Now, former Doctor Who Christopher Eccleston has revealed his lifelong battle with anorexia in his recent autobiography. It's taken him to the age of 55 to speak out about it because, in his words, he always thought of it as a filthy secret because I'm northern, because I'm male, and because I am working class. So is there a stigma for men when it comes to eating disorders? And if you have any experience at all of this and you would be happy to share it with us, then we would love to hear from you, either by text on 80295 or by giving us a call on 08085 92 95 00. Joined this morning by Tommy Kelly, who is a video blogger who has himself had experiences of anorexia. Morning to you, Tommy.
Morning, Kate.
Good morning. Sam Thomas is from the is an eating disorders campaigner. Hi, Sam.
Good morning.
Good morning. And also we're joined by Angela Traynor, psychotherapist and director at the Harvest Clinic in Glasgow. Nice to speak to you, Angela.
Good morning, Kate.
Good morning. So Tommy, do you relate in any way to Christopher's feelings about this, that it was something that he felt ashamed of, I guess, if he regarded it as a filthy secret, but much of it because of who he was, that he felt it didn't fit with his kind of profile?
Absolutely. I know that personally myself. I was a semi-professional footballer, and when I actually started to suffer with an eating disorder, which began with my mum dying, and at that time I just thought I was getting fitter, and I knew that I had an eating disorder, but I was too scared to speak out about it because there's this stigma of it being a white girl privileged illness, and even the general practitioners basically turns me away because I don't think they're even educated enough to know the signs of a male eating disorder, and you've just got to, it's looked upon that you've just got to toughen up and be this male stereotype, which is far from the truth.
So you did go and try and seek help, Tommy?
I did. I was going back and forward to my GP for the first 3 years of me having an eating disorder, and it actually took me to have a near fatal heart attack to actually be diagnosed as having an eating disorder, and I ended up in a coma for 3 months as well.
Right. Sam, what's your experience?
Well, similar themes as what Tommy's just explained. I attempted to get help twice, and the second time when I was 18, the doctor actually focused more on the depression rather than the bulimia. So for that reason, I didn't really get the help that I needed at the time when it was desperately needed. And in reflecting on that experience sometime after, I kind of thought, if I was a woman with the same set of situations and symptoms, would I have been diagnosed a lot sooner, and would I have got the help a lot sooner as well? So it is a big issue, and I think a lot of men often experience that same sort of barrier to the support because of the stigma, but also the gender stereotypes and just the overall stereotypes really that's associated with eating disorders.
You clearly started very young with you, Sam.
Absolutely. I started to develop an eating disorder when I was 13, which, I barely remember now because it's so long ago. But for me, it was a kind of reaction, really, a coping mechanism in which to deal with bullying at school. So I used to hide from, the bullies in the boys' toilets and binge and purge on the contents of my lunchbox. But of course, that's not something that I necessarily associated as an illness. It was just something that I thought I only did, something I invented even.
I mean, would you describe that as a coping strategy for you, or
Absolutely,
what did it represent to you? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's exactly that. It's a coping strategy, but the only thing that's worth mentioning, and it states the obvious, of course, it's a very damaging one, and it does eventually cause. It can actually even kill people. So that's the seriousness of eating disorders, that they have the highest mortality rate of all mental illnesses. So if they if someone's left untreated, then of course it can just get worse and worse.
And what was the impact on your mental and physical well-being?
Where do I begin? I mean, I had low self-esteem, no confidence, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts and thinking, that I was going to carry out those thoughts. So it is a vicious cycle, but at the same time, once you're trapped in that sort of cycle, it's very hard to break out of.
I mean, you said when you were in touch with health services, they focused on your depression, and I'll bring in Angela on this as well, because not having personal experience of this, but certainly having been involved in a lot of conversations about it in this kind of forum, that there always seems to be that conversation around what is this? What is an eating disorder? Should you focus on that, or should you be focusing on the underlying reasons for that happening, and what is the right path? I mean, you said, Sam, they were focusing on your depression rather than the bulimia. Was that the wrong way around, do you think?
Well, I think it needs to be dealt with in tandem. I think ideally, yes, I do agree that the underlying issues do need to be addressed, no question. But at the same time, if someone's sort of physical health is deteriorating as well as their mental health, it does make sense to try and sort of do a holistic approach to make sure that the whole of it is treated, not just part of it.
Right. So, in your instance, was it not recognised that you had an eating disorder?
No, it was overlooked completely, I think it's safe to say. But then again, this is 20 years ago now.
Sure.
So, times have moved on, hopefully have moved on. And that's why it's so great that Christopher Eccleston has spoken out recently. I mean, he's been one of quite a few who have spoken out, who have high profile figures even. So I think it's really important to keep having that conversation so that other men out there can actually recognise it and hopefully be able to get the help for themselves.
Tommy, was it recognised that you had an eating disorder?
No, the exact same experience as what Sam's actually said. I was being turned away from my doctor because obviously I was suffering from grief from my mum dying, and they just keep telling me I would get better, and I was getting given antidepressants. And just like Sam said, they should have really been dealing with both the signs of eating disorder and the actual grief, because I was demonstrating to the doctor that I was suffering from not feeling hungry enough, and I was cutting back in my food, and I felt as if I needed to exercise constantly. I kept telling him this, but I just really wasn't getting any way forward with it.
Yeah. I mean, Angela, have we just kind of developed a mindset whereby we tend to make this association? I think, as Tommy says, that the eating disorders are perhaps the preserve of teenage girls rather than anybody else?
I think we have done in the past, and thank God it is changing, and discussions like this will really help. I mean, 1 in 3 eating disorders affect males. That's the reality of the statistics. A lot of our cultural beliefs and expectations about, men as warriors and soldiers and supermen and tough guys and big boys don't cry, go and help them back. We have to change this mindset about our men, about our sons, and we have to also help to educate our daughters in their expectations of the men that they're going to be living with and working with. Vulnerability has to be encouraged, because it's the shame that stops people from seeking treatment. We need an understanding of the condition, of course, but the shame, when we shame people, particularly our men for sharing emotions, when they shame themselves, they won't seek the help, and we won't be able to have this awareness and have these discussions when all we able to have these discussions. But thankfully, it is changing now. It's very, very slow, but it is changing. And yeah, what you said earlier, we do need to treat it holistically. That there is often, I would say almost always, unresolved trauma, depression, anxiety, attempts to try and find control in a life that's going out of control. However, we absolutely do need to recognise that men do suffer from anorexia too.
That word shame, I mean, Sam, did you feel that? Did you feel a sense of shame?
Absolutely. I mean, it's quite interesting for me because I actually came to learn that I had bulimia from reading an agony aunt column in one of my mum's magazines, believe it or not. And it was actually a mother who had split up from her kids and split from her partner, had to have sole responsibility for her kids. And a long story cut short, she used to binge and purge in the evening. And having read that letter and the response from the agony aunt, that's how I learned. So, of course, there was a huge amount of shame, thinking that, A, this is, particularly something associated with women, but secondly, that it's also an illness that is actually slowly killing me. So, it was definitely a lot of shame. So, and actually, at the time that, I came to learn, which, like I say, is almost 20 years ago now, there was no, the internet was very hard to get hold of. You had to go to the library. There was no books on it. There's certainly no talks on this in schools, for instance. So, it was something that was very shameful. And of course, it made the illness even worse because it just became sort of a permission to self-harm with, if that makes sense, because of the way that the bullies made me feel and the way that I felt about myself.
You're an eating disorders campaigner now.
Yeah.
Are you in touch with other men? I mean, do you feel that things are shifting?
Well, I've been working in this sort of area for quite a number of years now, and I think things are starting to shift in the right direction, definitely. I do think there's a lot more conversations being had. I think we're talking more openly about men's mental health overall, and mental health generally speaking, actually. And I do think that there's, unfortunately, a bit of a barrier in terms of the support that is available, because unfortunately it is quite limited. And, depending where you are, depends on what services that are available. So I think there's still a lot more work to be done to try and sort of bridge that gap really between those that are actually needing that support and the support that can be available.
I mean, Angela, do you think that men would need to be approached from a treatment perspective, would need to be approached in a different way, or should we take gender out of it altogether and just see the mental health struggles and the eating behaviours and be treated entirely without reference to gender?
I think we are dealing with people, there's no doubt about it. I think there does need to be a wee bit of positive discrimination to bring this balance up in terms of awareness. Certainly Scottish Government is trying, there is the Scottish Eating Disorders Interest Group. In a culture where we're all desperately craving external approval, these problems are hidden. The secrecy, the shame, the isolation, the disconnection is part of the problem. So I think we definitely need to raise the awareness. We need to have these conversations, and we need to bring it out of the shadows and get people into projects where they're involved in connection, they're involved in relationship, they're involved in being able to be who they really are, to be validated, and to teach them ways to cope with life better. Not simply treating the trauma or simply treating the disease, but actually talking about these things that we're discussing this morning in an open forum without the shame and the secrecy.
I mean, Tommy, how did you eventually get onto a more positive path?
It was through an awful lot of different techniques. Luckily enough, I do have a good community eating disorder support service, which a lot of people don't have because it is quite a postcode lottery here in Scotland. A lot of people are turned away. And even myself, I felt I had to go away and make myself more ill to actually be accepted help, because I believe that the doctors just didn't think I was worthy of actually getting any help, or I didn't have an eating disorder. And just like Sam and everything said there, that you feel as if you've got to hide it, and I did that myself. I ended up going on to things like purging through laxatives, and I even went to the other end of the scale, going through things like steroids and things. And luckily enough, I have a good support service. I went through things like CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and DBT and things like that. And it's just, I think you've just got to take a lot of different keys to kind of unlock the door, and it does take a lot of time, and recovery is not linear. it does take a lot of time, but the earlier you can get help, the more chance you have of having a full recovery. So that's one thing I want to get out there to guys that are maybe listening to this morning, is if you've got a problem or you think you've got a problem, speak to someone, whoever it may be, whether it's even anonymous online, but please go to your GP and seek some help, because the earlier you can get help, the more chance you have of a full healthy recovery.
Yeah, I mean, but Tommy, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, if there are other men out there who are experiencing similar problems with eating and eating disorders, I mean, where do they go? Because you and Sam have both told me that often you're not taken seriously because you're a bloke.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of men that I do know actually go on to B-eat in the UK, which is a national eating disorder charity. They've got an online peer support group. They seek help on there, and I think that's the kind of best resource, because at the moment I just don't think GPs are educated enough on male eating disorders. And we've got to do more about it, and there's not enough even eating disorder units in the UK, especially in Scotland. There's literally only a few that's got a few beds, and it's like I say, it's this postcode lottery, and we need to do more education and obviously have more resources for males especially to go to. And when I was in the hospital, actually, the nurses were actually learning off me, because they had actually never seen a male with an eating disorder. So they were coming in and taking notes and telling me how to educate them on to help further males as they come in down the line. So the nurses don't even know enough how to cope with it or what to do to help best support you.
And yeah, Angela, you were saying, was it 1 in 3 you said the figures were?
1 in 3 eating disorders are male. I think it comes back to this notion, Kaye, where historically we've thought only women worried about their weight, and that somehow anorexia was a slimming disorder. You know, it's something to do with weight loss. Well, of course it is to do with weight loss, but it is certainly nothing to do with dieting. And I think that was the preserve of the female. The notion was that men would just give up the beer and the chips for a week or two. And I think we still, somewhere down the line, had that kind of mindset that it was the preserve of women. We absolutely know now that it isn't. We know that it is a serious, it's a life-threatening, it can at its worst be a form of slow suicide. And hopefully these conversations are going to move things forward, where men actually can begin to speak out and help will be provided.
Okay. Well, Angela, thank you very much. Nice to speak to you. And Sam Thomas, eating disorders campaigner, and Tommy Kelly there, a video blogger who has suffered from anorexia. Thanks very much for being so open and honest with us this morning. We're right back after...
Binge on life, purge negativity and starve guilty feelings. Speak to you all soon and love you so much.